Do we know if anyone else is coming or not coming?
I believe Victoria.
Oh, there she is. Victoria. All right, looking for a motion to approve the minutes of January 17, 2014, the executive committee meeting. You all have a copy of.
So moved.
Motion by Bob, second by. Oh, approve it.
I'll second it, but I will
All in favor?
also abstain from the vote.
Yeah, we're here.
Was there?
Okay, well, we get a second anyway from Bill.
Right.
Okay.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Abstain? Don? Okay. Okay, February, March, monthly minor revisions.
All right, so in your packet, you find the February, which, if I recall right, there wasn't anything. Oh, no, February was the Newmarket elevator and Skybridge connection, which was an increase in the preliminary engineering and Rochester right-of-way. And so the executive committee was unable to meet on February 21st, 2014 due to inclement weather. The administrative modifications were approved by myself. So this was just put in as a courtesy for you. And then for the March, we have the Durham Newmarket project. And so that one is an overall construction funding increase of $2.31 million. So this amount remains within the minor revision threshold. The funding increase in preparation for the project going out to bid, and that's for phase A. And then for phase B, it was the fiscal year 2015 construction funding decrease of $0.887 million. Funding shifted to phase A for the upcoming project bidding process. And then Mark contacted the DOT project engineer for this to ask for an explanation, and he said, this is from Ronald Graham Mason, I would be more than happy to provide a detailed explanation. In June, last June 2013, I had processed an estimate shortly after our slope and drain approval that programmed an additional $1.6 million, $2.2 million to $3.8 million with the following explanation. This estimate programs an additional $1.6 million in construction funds for fiscal year 2014 now that the slope and drain has been approved for the project. The increase is due in part to the amount of drainage and erosion control required in this sensitive area known as the flats. In addition to that, the original recommendation was for a roadway rehab, and the proposed treatment has become a complete reconstruction due to the current condition of the pavement and select. This increase requires a stick amendment. And that one is in process. I've run another estimate dated 3/10/2014 following our preliminary plans specs and estimate submission for an additional $500,000, $3.8 million to $4.3 million, which is critical due to the impending advertising date. With the following explanation, this estimate programs an additional $500,000 in construction funds for fiscal year 2014. Now that the preliminary plan specs and estimate submission has been approved for the project, the increase is due to refinement of quantities and required items. And so that requires a stiff action. So then he says he hopes that helps us understand. So the flats is the area between Newmarket and Durham, where you come down the hill going north or south, and you come into the area that's flat by Long Marsh and Bennett Road. And that's where the Oyster River watershed and the Lamprey River watershed overlap. And during flood events, there's an intermingling of the waters. So there's some real concerns with how to do the engineering for that. So that's what that one's about, and that's our only minor for the month.
Any questions?
So we're looking for someone to concur with my recommendation to approve the changes in the projects as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bill, seconded by Tom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's it. Okay, next on the agenda, telecommuting policy. I guess I'm right to do telecommuting policy.
Right, so this is a minor revision to this one. So, if you look down on the first page under request to telecommute, and you look at the last, 4th paragraph down, employees at home work hours will conform to a schedule or number of hours agreed to by the employee and executive director. Changes to the schedule or number of pre-approved telecommuting work hours must be reviewed and approved in advance by the executive director. Employees are not to work from home outside of normal business hours without prior approval in advance from the executive director. This includes checking and/or responding to emails, texts, or other forms of messaging outside of normal business hours. Telecommuting employees may only work overtime hours with the advance written approval of the executive director. So, so right there where there's been a lot of court cases looking at the number of hours that non-exempt employees are working, and so some of the court cases have said that checking emails, texts, and other forms of messaging outside of normal hours is work, and you should be compensated for that. So we're trying to put the limits in place so that we're compliant with the court's decisions. And then if you turn over to safety, efficiency, and property. So this is about how they work. So we added a sentence here. They must, staff must also agree to take all steps necessary to safeguard and protect all property and confidential, sensitive, and proprietary information of Strafford Regional Planning Commission. So what we modified here is we added the following. Employees who are authorized to work from home or other specified off-site location. So that's what we added there. Must assure the executive director that they may safely and efficiently perform all their duties and responsibilities. They must agree to maintain their work area free of all dangers, safety hazards, and risks that could endanger themselves, their families, or others. The sentence I just read upon. And the Strafford Regional Planning is not liable for injuries the telecommuting employee may receive while working at home, off-site, outside the agreed-upon work hours, or for injuries to third parties who may be present at the employee's at-home workspace. So depending on the type of work to be performed, equipment may be furnished to the employee for use at their home or off-site location. So that's that specified off-site location. Telecommuting employees are responsible for any equipment, etc., and they're expected to return it upon termination or separation of employment. Okay, under meal periods and records, non-exempt employees who receive work approval to work at or from their homes or any specific off-site location, that's the addition there, must comply with all record-keeping requirements and must accurately record all working time. They also must take meal and rest periods in accordance with applicable legal requirements and our policies. Employees are not exempt from the meal period, rest period, or record-keeping rules solely because they are permitted to work at their home or at specified off-site locations. So I don't think that there was any other changes that I made here.
I want to make sure I understand exactly what the,
You can't go down to Cafe on the
No.
corner and work.
that's the last sentence in the first paragraph.
And where are you, which section,
Right
please?
here, the area you're talking about right now, safety, efficiency, property.
Okay, can you start this sentence?
Strafford Regional Planning Commission is not liable for injuries a telecommuting employee may receive while working at home.
Mhm.
I am concerned with exactly what you're trying to say there, and it may be something as simple as putting in a comma or something. But right now, if you have them doing a survey somewhere,
This
does
is
this-
telecommuting only. This, I understand we have that in another section. This is for telecommuting only, this policy.
but your definition includes what I just described. Look at the first page, your definition. This is where my problem, I don't have a problem with what we're trying to achieve, it's how we're saying it.
All right, I will send this back to the attorney for review.
Any other comments?
There's only one on the safety issue, and that would be if they're using their home computers, that they have antivirus.
I think part of that's addressed by the use of VPN, essentially. But that's a legitimate, well, I don't know,
That's a good question, I'll
Yeah.
ask that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Bob, specifically yours is about what is their off-site?
yeah, I think we may need to play a little bit with the language in telecommuting, that resolves it. I understand what we're trying to do, I'm not arguing that point.
Yeah.
But as worded right now, look at telecommuting. If they're out doing a traffic survey, that meets the definition.
Yeah, that's not telecommuting in our,
I agree.
yeah, okay. And your question was they have to have properly protected. So that might fit in the section about the safety of their location, but we need to properly protect.
They're coming in through VPN?
Yep,
That may, I'm not saying it does, but
right, we'll check it.
that may resolve that
We'll
issue.
check it. What is VPN?
Original private network, which essentially is a firewall system. So I'm not sharp enough on computers to swear to it,
Yeah.
but I believe if you're coming in on VPN, we are protected. They may not be, but we are.
So if they have a virus, hopefully it's not transmitted to our system.
The VPN firewall would reject that. That's my understanding. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think you are
What's the
treading
other-
into a dangerous area, telling them they have to install. If you're saying you're willing to pay for the antivirus software, that's one thing. But to tell an employee you have to spend money at home on your own computer makes me a little nervous.
Why? Because I mean, it's for, if they're.
It's their
an employee-
computer.
It's their computer.
Right, but they are an employee and they're
And if
offsite.
they choose not to, then they can't telecommute them. But telling them they have to spend money, I don't think you
I
can.
see what you're saying.
We do have people that request to take home laptops, so we have that quite frequently. When we have a weather event, all of our laptops are going home, so people are using office computers.
So it's office laptops, basically,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
that should take care of that
but
issue.
some are using their own.
Yeah.
We have a variety of what people are using at home. Right, Shannon? Yep.
Anything
All
else?
right. Nope, we'll go back and have another review on that. Thank you, though, that's really good. It's a complicated world.
Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is record retention.
All right, this one isn't ready yet, and neither is the health insurance, and what I would like to request is that we set up a subcommittee to work on this.
On both of them, you mean? Cynthia?
Well, and others, because Maryland is a human resources personnel, and she's certified and she goes to training every month and legal updates twice a year, and we get alerts every week, and the law is changing, you know, and the court decisions affect policy and practices, and so we're trying to stay current with things, and we're working with our attorney, but we have a social media policy we need to do. We need to put, we have a practice for record retention, but we need to put it into place as either a practice or a policy. And we haven't examined our health insurance since the first year I was here, and that's been 15 years now since we looked at our health insurance benefits. So we're trying to do amendments in the most pertinent areas. So
So you need a committee?
I need a strong.
I'll be on it.
Okay, and
A committee for rewarding the book?
yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then I would like to have Marilyn on this too, because I rely on the information. And we do have an attorney, Deborah Ford Weiss, and Deborah Weiss Ford, sorry. And this is her specialty. She's nationally ranked attorney. She's great.
Regarding
She just does human resources and personnel labor law. Yep.
I'll be on.
Okay, thank you.
So it's the three of us.
Yeah, and Marilyn.
What was it? 3 plus Maryland?
Yes. So Victoria, Tom, myself,
Okay.
and Marilyn.
And Marilyn.
Yes, thank you.
That committee, subcommittee will take care of both issues, right?
Yes,
The
and
NP.
the social media, also any others that come up.
Yeah.
So the Department of Labor is really looking very closely at status of non-exempt employees and how they're working, and that's why we're trying to address this to stay compliant.
Moving on to discussion items. A, the draft December financial report, as well as the January and February.
Right.
Want me to-
So you have the through February, so we were just trying to get caught up so that we could be official. So in your packets, you should have December and January, and then today you should have received the February.
The February's on the very bottom of the packet, sorry.
So I guess I would take questions, but what we need to do is for an action is the board maybe could consider accepting these, so they're drafts and they remain drafts through the fiscal year, because we make adjustments month to month as there's corrections or additions that need to be made. And the important part about this is the fact that, remember last year I used to take the dues into income, and so this would be another way of doing that, because the dues are included on this.
Let's see, February, page,
So you want to look at the February?
please.
Yeah. So
Just one minor question. Page 1 at the top, Nashua Regional Planning Commission.
which sheet are you on, the balance?
It says page 1.
There, a lot of them are numbered.
Okay, well, let's see. That would be income by customer.
Yep.
One question on this Nashua Regional Planning Commission,
Yep.
and is that the Granite State?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you can see there, we use cash match there. And we've made some adjustments to our budget so that we could include the work that Bruce Mayberry is going to be doing for our regional housing needs assessment. So that a portion of that contract will be paid using cash match, our local match, but it will be included as match to this program. Because the regional housing needs assessments, the other RPCs are doing this through the HUD grant funds.
And one other last question. The Associated Regional Planning Commission members traveling from Rochester to Concord, are they giving any sort of stipend to?
No, we don't give a
Nothing, they
stipend.
just- It's out of their pocket.
But he could do it as an IRS voluntary driving. I don't know, I've never done that.
It's just, you know, it just seems like it would be some sort of a consideration for us to think about.
Well,
It's hard to do with the IRS. Tried a couple times.
That's a good challenge.
It's a big challenge.
I take it as volunteer model.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough, thank you.
And they've changed the mile. It used to be two flat mileage rates, per diem or one other. Now it depends on what the purpose is, and some of them are rather generous. Anything else?
yes, so when Kathy and I were going over this sheet, the big one, I had one payment that I didn't understand, and so we chopped it back. And in June, we received, for the UPWP, we received 2 invoices from our traffic model consultant within 3 days, one for May and one for June, and we accidentally paid it twice. And so we billed a DOT twice for that. So we sent that off to DOT the same day as we discovered it, and we got refunded from the consultant, and so DOT told us what to do so that we could rectify the situation. So we will subtract like amount so that we're equal from one of our payments. And so their auditor told us what to do, and that was passed on to us, and so that's already in process for the March billing and will be rectified and even.
So it's at $3,800.
No, it was like 49.
49.
Yeah. Other than that, if you have any questions on this, we're down to the months where we do, the holidays are over and vacations are over, and we usually bill very highly in March, April, May, June. So I think we're in pretty good shape for the budget. And we have some new contracts you can see over there under municipal planning services. We got a contract to update the town of Nottingham maps. It's a series of 12 maps. We're doing some mapping for Farmington for them for a new economic zone. And the Durham master plan, that's a 2-year contract that we've got underway. So that's in place for $35,000 a year, calendar year.
And this mapping, is this the Mosaic GSI or?
No, these are town maps.
Town maps.
Yeah, so one of our staff lived in Nottingham, he still lives in Nottingham, and he did the maps for him, and they've been up on the wall since '98, and they're getting a little old, so we're really excited that they're getting a new series of maps, and so they're paying for that, so that's in process right now.
How much do we get in the way of maps for that place?
We charged them the non-member rate, and I don't think it was a big contract. It's definitely under 5,000, but I think it might be under 3,000. I'm not really sure. I think it was in somewhere in the 2 to 3. But there's 12 very large format maps with multiple layers of information on them. Any other questions on the?
And this is being done how often? This is from your auditor that comes in?
Our auditor comes in once a year.
And
No, are you talking about DOT?
no, the bookkeeper that is in, haven't come in.
She comes in about 2 times a week.
Okay. Okay.
It's not an issue of the bookkeeping contract that we have now.
Okay.
I was correcting 2 past mistakes.
Okay.
She's been busy correcting mistakes, so almost done. And everybody makes mistakes, you know, that's why we have processes.
It makes us all human.
Yes, it does. As long as you can correct it and adjust, it's not a mistake.
Okay, no other questions, we'll move on to item D. Fiscal year 15 officers and executive committee candidates.
Do you need any approval from
Yeah, we
us?
need to, I guess the best wording would be not to approve because we're still adjusting, but to accept them.
This is draft.
Yes. That would make me feel more comfortable.
So move.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Now we'll move on. Fiscal year 15 officers executive committee candidates.
Yes, you asked for this to be brought forward so that we could confirm who on the executive committee as an officer and as a member was interested in running for fiscal year 15. These are one-year terms, and so we were trying to figure out who was interested. You have to be from a member community. And so we're just today getting an idea of who's interested in continuing on for fiscal year 15. And then in April, we'll send out information to all of the commissioners who are from member communities, and they'll have the opportunity to put their name in the hat. And that's what I understood you wanted us to do for the future.
Right, after that discussion we had back in 2012, I think we ironed that out.
Yeah. And is this how you wanted it?
Yes, I say raising of the hands who's willing to serve. Raise the hand.
Oh, you want it
to
now?
serve.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll continue on as treasurer.
Okay, you're,
And for what?
Stay on the executive
Stay
commission.
in the executive.
And you would like to stay as treasurer?
Yep,
okay.
and also on the executive committee.
Okay.
Yeah, and if no one else is interested, I'll stay as the chairman,
Okay.
unless someone else wants it.
Okay, and Victoria?
Does anybody else want to change the position, or?
I'll stay on the committee if that's appropriate, but I don't have to be the vice chair. If there's someone else that wants it.
Okay.
Okay, then I would, if that's the case.
So that would be really challenging for us as a regional entity to have 2 officers from the same community.
Right.
We've talked about that before.
Right.
We're trying to be.
I have no intention of that.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, I thought you said you
No,
weren't. Okay.
no.
And I definitely would like to continue to serve.
Okay.
All right.
Is
So
anybody here interested in the vice chair position?
She is for it, she got it.
Can someone who wants to be on the committee take that?
yeah,
I'm fine with keeping it. I just
We'll
don't
send out a
want to have
note
to
that
do
says
Okay,
Victoria's
right now
willing to
you're
serve.
staying with it.
I'm staying with it.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to stay on the
Yeah,
committee,
if
but if
someone wants-
someone else would like to be vice chair, you
That-
yeah.
Okay.
So we'll send it out that way. So,
Okay.
Okay.
so for a summary so that Shane and I can do this. So Brian would like to stay on as chair.
Unless I'm not much.
And Bill would like to stay on as a member.
Yes.
And Victoria would like to stay on as a member and is willing to relinquish vice chair if someone else is interested. And Tom wants to stay on as secretary treasurer, and Bob wants to stay on.
And,
And
we
then
have,
we'll hear
we have
from
the other
Ken and
two
Sandra.
members, Sandy
Yep,
Keynes and
we'll
Ken
contact
Orman.
them.
And also, the alternate positions. Right now, we have Mr. Ed Jansen, and we have Mr. Paul Ravitas. And I'd ask Brian to give us a little update on Brian. What's his,
All everybody, you mean?
yeah, what's his?
I've contacted him, he was here when he was first nominated, and that's when he took over his new job. Exactly what his title is, but he's in charge of the newly formed American Ambulance Service, some sort of. Yeah, so on away. And I guess he's been working 70, 80 hours a week. I don't believe he was at the planning board meeting this past Wednesday. I didn't see him there. He's also a member of the planning board, but I don't think he's been taking those people. I'm going to have to talk to him and see if he's sincere or not, because there's another individual on the planning board named Dave Woodham. He already proved that he would take it all the place. So that's what I'm.
Okay, so
Okay,
that's.
so you're gonna iron that out. You're gonna find out,
Right.
report back to us and tell us.
Right, and just so that people understand, the way that it works is that what happens in Somersworth is not our process.
That's
So
right, that's right.
That's your
He
business.
formally has to write a letter, put a letter in writing to the mayor, you know,
And then if that were to happen, then a copy of that needs to come forward
Sure.
to us with the
That's
change.
a courtesy.
And the way that the process works officially in the RSAs is that the planning board nominates and the legislative body approves the appointments. So,
that's right.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm glad I got it right.
Okay, if there's nothing else under office and executive committee candidates, we'll move on to FEMA funding. Ken Orman and Bob Jaffe. Ken's not here, Bob, so.
And I don't know that Ken has even had a chance to digest this, and this is purely informational at this point. There are no actions of any sort. Just to give you an idea what funding looks like from FEMA. Obviously this came to me, people didn't realize it. I get this automatically because I'm a member of the International Association of Emergency Managers. But the bottom line is, this is another source of funding. And I want to begin to get some visibility on FEMA processes. The standard FEMA processes is unique from the mitigation processes, which are driven by declared disasters. So there's annual funding of all different sorts every year. In addition, if you have a declared disaster, there may be mitigation money. What we talked about the last time I was in here addressing the issue was mitigation money. This is, again, just trying to bring people up to speed, those who are interested in understanding the whole federal landscape is changing, and monies that used to be one place are other places or going away completely. Realistically, if we're going to function as an MPO and an RPC, I think we're going to eventually need to be tapping into funds from other federal agencies. On a editorial, personal basis, I would love to be able to shift funding so that we are not so totally dependent on MAP 21 funding or replacement for MAP 21 funding. That may have been the creation of these organizations, but I'm not sure it's ever going to be able to fund them the way they did many years ago. So alternate streams of funding are going to be important, and I think this is one of the primary sources. So again, I'll be glad to talk to anything on this after people have looked at it. I'm available offline for discussions about FEMA and funding. Again, we just want to start bringing up that issue and make people understand. If we get to a new business today, I have something that could tie back to this, as a matter of fact, but still independent. You got to understand, they're like jigsaw puzzle to put pieces together. Any questions conceptually? I mean, this gives you an idea of the sort of funding that comes out of FEMA.
I would like if Bob went through this with more detail, because I'm learning this as well.
Again, most of this here, again, remember, this is just a highlight from our association. There's emergency management performance grants, theoretically, state, local programs, which include national preparedness grants, firefighter assistance grants, training partnership grants. So that's one source of funding. I don't think traditionally, in New England at least, that the MPO, RPC organizations have gone after that funding. There's nothing preventing that.
Have you seen anybody do that?
No. And I'm not that deeply involved at the national level seeing where the funding is going. That's what Martha would do is our, basically, Emergency Management Institute would be of no interest to any of you other than where we have city councils. If you really understand FEMA and the Strafford Act, which is the act that created FEMA and drives the funding, theoretically, every city councilor should have completed, all of a sudden, the correct number. The independent study courses are, I'll talk what they are in a minute. Conceptually, every elected city councilor in every jurisdiction should have completed 4 FEMA required independent study courses. The way the law is written, any town that cannot prove that all of its councilors have had those courses could be, not will be, could be denied FEMA funding. 100, 200, 700, and 800. Don't worry about what they are. I'm just trying to give you that framework. All of those are administered through EMI.
Have you been smaller towns?
Excuse me?
Is that in smaller towns selected?
I'm unclear, but my feeling would be if you're involved in making decisions in large-scale emergencies, which typically is at the council, well, as part of a larger area,
Yeah.
you know. Yes, a lot of people would choose to ignore it. Very briefly, independent study, you do them online, you get a certificate you print out. And they're not hard courses, but it makes you aware and helps you understand, which ties to everything we're doing in planning.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the City of Somersworth has our fire chief, our new fire chief, as the head of the emergency management and all that stuff. Does that cover the city?
It does not. All your elected officials, they are making decisions that go beyond the fire chief.
I've never heard of that.
I know.
Is that new?
No, that's been around for some time. In New England, the attitude has been, we've assigned an emergency manager. There's not even a full-time position. They could make an issue out of that. I've never heard of that happening. But the issue of elected officials not having completed these 4 courses has been made an issue more than one time. And again, just to give you an example, this is where one of the largest problems was with Katrina. The mayor and the governor didn't understand their responsibilities, and that's what was the first breakdown in that whole response. No one's talking about how good a job FEMA did or didn't do. They don't understand that they have to ask for it. They have certain requirements, and they never ask for it. By law, FEMA can't do anything. So that's an oversimplified example of just how critical it can become. In that case, it was the mayor. In Rochester, the city manager, the fire chief, and the deputy and assistant chief all have had the courses. I don't believe any of our other elected officials have. And when you start talking about making decisions about spending city money, it's not the fire chief or the police chief, it's who? You're selecting your city council. Now, just using that as an example, for us, we feel that that whole outreach education is critical in my organization, IAEM. That's why EMI is in there, because we have a higher education component down there. And that's a conference I attend every year.
So what you're saying about our chief, police chief, really do not have, they can act, but they cannot spend money,
Not beyond what's in their budgets,
not what's beyond their budget. They've got to ask for it,
even in an emergency.
even in emergency.
Yep, think about that for a minute. And how many of the people in this state who are elected to these offices understand the whole system? There are only 4, I mean, there are probably I'm going to say there are over 100 courses in the MI right now, what we call IS courses, independent study. There are only 4 of them that are required. You can knock off 1 a day or 1 a week online at your own and put the certificate in the folder and you're set. They're not terribly difficult. They're not making you experts, but it's the same thing I'm trying to do here, is to bring the level up. Where's your sources of funding? Didn't we just see in the paper, and I believe, didn't Dover just get, what was it, 900 to 9,000 or something? Summersworth?
Yeah, qualified fighters, 20 of them, 90,000.
Yeah, that was in today's paper, as a matter of fact. But in addition to Summersworth, I'm almost positive Dover or Barrington just got some mitigation money also.
I
Nice
had to
money.
go before, the fire chief's the one that investigated, and the council had approved the resolution ordinance
Yeah, because
to get the money. But I don't know whether or not they have training or not.
well, that again, that's which pot of money are you talking from?
Yeah.
As I say, it allows FEMA to deny emergency funding. Not these are routine submissions and grants, and just pointing out the fact that should money get tight, what would be one of the first criteria that money got tight in a bad year? Have your elected officials met the requirement? Now that may never happen. Howsoever,
It could.
it certainly could.
Well, Cynthia's saying that she wants to get up and speak on this.
No.
Well, I thought I heard you say that, that you were still learning. But
Yes, I am.
this really sounds sort of like be a hot topic for us. I mean, it looks like it hasn't been exploited.
I don't want to say exploited, because the funding has shifted over the years, and these are opportunities. 4 or 5 years ago, I'm not sure I would, well, actually I did start talking about mitigation money, but these larger issues we weren't even talking about. As funding streams dry up and it becomes tougher, and as the whole political scene changes, this is just an excellent source. We don't have to be doing anything, we just need to be ready as the EC to say, yeah, let's somebody go look at that, even look at it, because preparing a grant's not a small job, as you know.
Well, we get hit with another hurricane, like we did in '55. And I remember that one here.
Ask Sandy Keynes about forest fire in what was
Forest
it,
fire,
47?
Rochester.
47?
47,
Yes.
you know.
And our conditions, since 2006, our conditions are reaching the point that if we have a couple of dry years, we could see a forest fire again.
I mean, I remember I was on the fire department in Mabry in the early 50s. Summertime, we did fire watch at night because of the fire of 47.
And we've lost that. And that's natural, that's human evolution. It's so far long ago, there aren't enough current residents who understand and appreciate, and the relatively small effort and time and dollars expended now can pay huge dividends. I will tell you from, again, strictly personal standpoint, Route 102 from Derry up to where it joins 107 in Raymond was probably the only route I know of that I happened to travel on at different times in the state that had been properly prepared in terms of what we call vegetation management, getting stuff away from the road. That's the only place in the state I know of that I felt it was managed properly, just to give you one example.
Yeah.
Cynthia?
So I'm hoping to leave at 9 o'clock for the day. I just wanted, Bob, if you could give me a few minutes.
Sure.
As, you know, I'm fine with this as long as I have like 2 minutes to do the executive director, and that would be great. for me.
I'm fine. I mean, you're the one who asked me to, I wanted people to look at it. If you had questions, I might have to research them myself, because I am not the lobbyist and I'm not an expert, but I'm very aware.
You're an advocate.
An advocate, yeah.
I want to hear about it every time we meet.
I'm interested to know how the whole NPO structure, how it could take this in. Because I've always would like to think that other issues besides
One quick
transportation
example.
would be addressed.
There are a number of different series of courses that come out of the MI in Emmitsburg. All right, there's G courses, E courses, I mentioned the IS courses. We, as an MPO, could be the sponsor regularly for, let's say, all the people from all of our towns, we're doing IS 200 down here the first and third Wednesday of next month. Conceptually, we could be the host. If we begin doing that, we could also eventually have EMI instructors come out and do remote larger courses. And EMI doesn't charge for these courses, but there are restrictions. It might have to be firefighters, police, and EMTs, and elected officials. But we could, it is my personal opinion, again, I'm trying to separate out the factual part of it plus the editorial part. We could be the primary provider of EMI sorts of training in emergency management to the region, the state, or simply the county.
It could be a real service.
It could be a service, and there is essentially minimal, if any, cost. Or theoretically, if everybody liked it and I had the time, I could become certified as an instructor and do some of the instruction.
Also bring in Southern Maine.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, they could teach. The people in Southern Maine could teach some of those courses right now. I know the people in EMA, York EMA. They've served nationally in this field. They know what they're doing. I don't want to take away from you, and I appreciate it, but you started me.
I
You
know.
turned me off.
Thanks, Bob.
We can talk about it some more.
Yeah.
Future meetings.
Cynthia, you wanna?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, let's see, I haven't gotten any more for item 3F. I don't think Shane or I have received any more input.
How many do you need?
I don't think we have a quorum.
No, I think we have two.
Two.
You received two?
You and
Yeah.
you.
You and you, Bob and myself.
Yeah.
So Brian,
I've
Victoria,
tried to complete it,
Tom,
but I just
Ken,
feel
and
like
Sandy, they're
But I
the
feel
ones
like-
that haven't provided it.
Yeah, I feel it's an
I see.
exercise that's important to go to, but I don't feel comfortable just checking everything and sending it off. It's just, I have more questions than anything.
Well, if you wanted to come in and make an appointment and go through it with me, then we could incorporate the comments.
In some way, I
Okay.
just, I don't.
Yeah, I'm willing to do
Steve,
that.
Don't you have to have that done by June in order to be eligible for funding?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
No. This is just our own internal. So it may take us 4 or 5 years.
Then I'll give a quick answer.
And I don't know, I just put the non-public personnel there in case there was,
Well, I'd like to get into that before we leave. if I
okay.
could. Okay?
Yeah.
Are you all done with your?
So the executive director report, I just wanted to say we've hired Colin Luntz and Liz Ducray who worked with us through end of September, and they are going to be working on the master plan, and they're also the regional master plan, and they're also doing field work. So they'll be doing traffic counts, and so we're trying to get them officially announced on our website. We need to have them up on the website and also send out an email alert. And I told you about the grant. Both Colin and Liz wanted to learn how to write grants, and so I've assigned them a grant opportunity that came through, and it has a preliminary proposal that's only 2 pages, so it's a really good way to learn how to start developing grant skills. And so, it's dealing with climate change, working collaboratively with other communities, and then that's it. I'm going to DC next week. I've been invited to go to an MPO meeting to meet with congressional staff on the infrastructure committees that will be handling the MAP 21 reauthorization, and that's part of my membership on the technical advisory committee for MPO, and so we're having a joint meeting of the policy and technical committee, so I'm staying with my neighbors down there. So it doesn't cost us much, just the airline. And that's been approved by, I had to be approved to travel out of state, so that's been approved.
Have fun.
Thanks.
Enjoy.
Well, thanks.
Okay, now, one more, because I think we're gonna have to adjourn, but before we do that, not adjourn, recess. but
Recess.
Before we do that, the committee to evaluate the director met January 9th, 2 p.m. And a motion was made by Tom, second by Bob, to go into a non-public for 91A personnel. And we discussed a raise for our director, and a motion to recommend to the full executive committee. And a motion to come out of non-public by Bob and Tom at 2:30 p.m. And the motion to adjourn at 2:30, 31, whatever. But anyway, what I'm getting at, as a committee, we will recommend that our executive director gets a 3% raise. And I don't know if Tom or Bob want to elaborate any more on that. It's a recommendation, we'll give the raise.
Can I answer?
Sure.
The evaluation using the old forms. The team's working on.
For a new form, yes.
Yep.
We haven't done that yet.
I'd like to get the evaluation completed using the old forms as soon as possible. We've been talking about this for a length of time. And I know the committee's spent a lot of time working on the new forms. In all fairness, the executive director, we have to decide when to get the old form in front of us and get this evaluation done. And we can tie it into the recommendations of the committee as far as raises.
I will make a commitment. That's fine.
Okay. And at that time, once we complete all these this whole process, that's when we'll.
I thank you for your recommendation.
Yeah.
I didn't know, so thank you.
Is it good?
No.
All right, I'd like to take a motion to recess. We have a couple more items to discuss. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
Wait, Tom, you're a second.
Let's do it. Who's like it? Cynthia's not, so. Let's get
to.
come out of recess.
Yeah.
Second.
Seconded by Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, well, back in business. And when we left, we did discuss personnel, which was Cynthia's evaluation. And she did do the executive director's report, and went down to the New Hampshire Rail Authority and New England Rail Coalition. Bob, you're on.
All right. We are moving forward.
Good.
That is moving forward. The report, the first reports come out. There's an initial timeline now for actual service in the Capital Corridor. One piece of that includes something called bus on shoulder, which would be in Massachusetts. I'm not going into all the details. I'm just trying to go through the highlights. The largest issue right now is understanding how one gets federal monies from the various pots of federal money. And the critical issue is the current New Hampshire Rail Transit Authority has, 19, 21 members. The federal FRA will not deal with that. There's going to have to be something that creates a much smaller organization in the size of 5 to 7. So that's the major issue right now on that side of it, if there's any hope of taking it forward. And as I say, there are some issues that apparently are unique to New Hampshire compared to most other states that present some challenges moving forward. Again, in terms of organization, what legally can and can't be done, preferred forms to create this new organization. It may, in fact, actually provide a larger opportunity for the MPOs and the RPCs as the intermediaries between this much smaller organization, which is the only way the state can hope to see any money come from the federal government in this area. So that's probably the big thing. extending commuter rail into southern New Hampshire in Rockingham is part of the discussion. They're not unaware of the problems in other parts of the state. They're not unaware of freight rail, although this is the Rail Transit Authority. This is a very specific focus. But it does recognize they're working hard to get, in terms of possibly what happened in Newburyport, placed out as distinct from the Downeaster. So that pretty much, I think, brings you up to date. Things are really beginning to move forward. At some point in the intermediate future, somebody's going to have to make, we as citizens as well as the organization is going to have to make up a mind. You know, the legislature, do we really want it, don't we want it? But there is some good fact-based work that's been done that can help people reach the decision. I can tell you from what I've heard, they talk about either extending Nashua, Manchester, or Concord, and there is no justification for Concord. That could be a future add-on. The issue is whether or not it goes as far as Manchester and where in Manchester.
You're saying the data doesn't support Concord?
Yep, very basically. The facts I've heard, as I understand them, and the reports are out there, it really doesn't support extending passenger rail to Concord at this point in time. The project would terminate in Manchester at best, and obviously the further you go, the more it costs. But they can justify Nashua and or Manchester. They can't justify Concord right now. Those are the key points.
It's probably not key, but the abandoned state-owned rail lines. Is there anything about that?
Not really.
I think there's something neither of the sign of the house.
Well, one of the problems here, again, is that this was constituted as the New Hampshire Rail Transit Authority. You know, I personally I wasn't here at that time when it was put together, but I think it should have been the New Hampshire Rail Authority, not Rail Transit Authority. That limits it right there. And the whole focus originally was the Captain Car. Again, I wish it were a larger, you know, it was a broader based group. I wish it was looking at other issues, but it's not.
But so it needs to be shrunk down, but you're saying it needs to address broader issues. So it needs to
Yeah, but the state.
So who makes that happen? Who makes that happen? Who would make that happen? Would that be the legislature?
Yes.
Would have to be.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's legislative. That's legislative.
Yeah.
And to change it, to shrink it down from the 19 or 21 or whatever number of members there are now to the 5 to 7 that would be required,
Yeah.
that the federal government's willing to deal with, that's legislative. But there are 2 or 3 different vehicles you can use to do that. And the most effective, the way we're structured in the state, the way our current laws are written, we can't. Now, some of that's DOT, some of that's legislation. We're not that close to it right now, although we're talking about decisions have to be made in the next 12 months.
So are there legislators that understand this?
There are legislators on the Transit Authority who show up.
They probably want to stay on it. All right.
Yeah, and that's going to be a
They
problem.
don't want to go.
Yes,
Which ones?
amongst others. And the individual cities are all going to disappear. Oh, yeah. We're talking 5 to 7 people. It's going to be the state, possibly the NPOs, possibly labor, and then the rail companies. Think about it. I mean, that's...
Right. And who's saying the NPO should be more?
That was just brought up in the discussions. The understanding of how do you interface from the much smaller core group now, which has the authority, to the rest of the state. And whether you're talking the bus companies, well, yeah, the bus companies probably won't survive that. Okay? Not sure. In fact, I'm not sure they're on there. I take it back. Their lobbyist shows up and talks, but he doesn't sit on the transit authority. So one of the areas that got a lot of support was the concept that you would have the core, which is the, let's say 5, just for convenience, all right? That's the transit authority. Surrounding that would be the 9 RPCs. And then they in turn would reach out. So it's another opportunity for the RPCs, MPOs to become active participants with the community rather than viewed as way out there. I didn't bring that one up, and at first I didn't understand what way, but it finally sunk in that this actually may begin to represent a better way to handle, you know, transportation is part of planning. So it makes sense from a number of different logical aspects.
In today's bosses, it was announced that Mayor Hilliard had formed a committee for bringing passenger rail back
that would service Rochester, Somersworth, Dover, and then go over into Durham to pick up.
Exeter. Yeah, I saw the article. I was going to bring that up in
So
other business.
these little local committees, how does that just add more power to the people up in Concord, the legislators to?
I think this goes back to Victoria. Those local committees, we were working through us, the RPC, to get to the Rail Transit Authority.
Well, they're sort of on their own right now.
And that's what you want, that they're interested in their local area. They should not be interested in whether the capital corridor works or doesn't work, but they have a rail need. If we had 17 or 18 local committees, we could now go back to the state legislator and perhaps Victoria or you or I don't know how well you really understand the system and getting laws on the books in this state. Any one of us in this room can sit down here and write something and send it into our representative or senator, whether it was an individual RPC that chose to do it, which may be a stretch. I'm not clear on the law, but certainly that committee should be contacting Senator Waters, for instance,
Well,
and saying,
we have two members that Hilliard, he was in the legislature for a number of years, and same way with Sprague, Dale Sprague.
yeah.
So they've got a pretty good understanding.
But basically, that's how it happened. You know, especially in this state, we want to come from the bottom up. So it's got to be the Somersworth committee, and maybe Somersworth wants to talk to Marcia or to Ken or me or some other city.
Yeah.
And if you want to include Rochester, I think somebody should be talking to Rochester. I thought it was basically looking from Somersworth back into Exeter. That's what I saw in the paper. But the point is, maybe you want to look at, maybe once you get that committee, some people from Portsmouth want to say, wait a minute, isn't there a way to include us and maybe change the routing a little? I mean, I'm just making things up as I go, but conceptually, these are the opportunities. I said, I'd like to touch on this again under other business.
Okay.
Just a Tiger grant. No, I don't want to stop now. I just want you to understand.
Sure.
If there were a Rochester committee and a Milton, personally, I believe it's realistic to talk about passenger rail from Alton Bay down, or wherever Boston Sand and Gravel. I have to look at the rail line. It would have to be their rail line, which means they have to buy into it also. All right? It has to interchange through Pan Am package, so they have to buy into it. I'm just trying to give you a feel, but if you build, and I can tell you, Pan Am is much more interested than it was 3 years ago, because there's been a major change in senior management. The old man retired, the son took it over, he's building rail business. That's the first time since the 70s that they've been building a rail business, rather than making their money on real estate. All right, so there are a lot of different things going on. We got a little off track here, and I'd like to bring it back again later, but that's what we're here for, so that we get these things out there. Anything else I can?
You're talking about Ospiegie, coming down that way?
I know anytime I happen to get up on Milton Road and go north, the track is paralleling that, all the way up Milton and Farmington. This opens up huge economic opportunities for workforce in both directions.
Yeah.
And
But
we
it's
know,
a track that's maintained, that is not heavily used.
and well, remember, we've already got the first Tiger grant to improve the 42 miles from the Rockingham interchange, or the Rollinsford interchange, up to Ospey. So that's what I mean, leveraging things and working together and getting, we got the first, and that was the original on that Trigon grant. We'd like to see not commuter rail, but passenger rail running all the way up to Conway. But you don't get all that money at once, and you can't do it at once. Look at the fight they're having in California about high-speed rail. What's the logical thing to do? Where can we build pockets of support, which has to translate to action in the state legislature? If it doesn't happen there, nothing else is going to happen. So I happen to feel this should be part of an even larger look at Strafford County specifically. But again, I'd like to bring that back onto other business, and I'll try and keep that short.
Okay, just at the end of it, I intend to contact our local committee and whatever they have for information. I'm going to be sending it on to you.
Can you get me anything tonight? I'm sorry, not tonight. What am I talking about? Before We meet the fourth Friday of every month. So we're meeting again next Friday morning in Concord. I would love to be able to talk about this sort of interest. Again, that's exactly how it happens. I'm your conduit, whether I happen to like it or not. You know, in this case, I support it. But in fact, it was something I was against when you brought it up. This would still be the route from you as the city through you as commissioner to SRPC's representative on, it used to be Sandy, now it's me, on, I would love to be able to go in and show this renewed interest. And I have some very specifics in terms of Somersworth.
I'll, I'll contact the people that are on the committee. I will do that.
Excellent, because I do not believe Somersworth, even on this larger body, Somersworth was not there, I don't believe. I'm representing SRPC, not Rochester. So Durham is there, Exeter is there, Nashua, Manchester are there, because they are on the route. But Somersworth isn't, Rochester isn't. And this is the way we get it. So that's exactly how government, my way of thinking, is how government should work. It starts local and works its way up.
Is there a rail line that comes out of the Navy Yard, goes in through Rollinsford and up and down?
It can all be tied together. Now you're beginning to see the sorts of things I'm thinking about. And again, you're into my other business, so hold that one for a little bit.
Okay. We have a Regional Impact Committee. Committee members here today?
You skipped over something.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. NHARPC Committee update. Ken's not here, but I think Bob's got something.
That's right.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yes. While it hasn't been finally voted on, I'm on a subcommittee, and we'll be meeting Monday. We lost this week for some, the weather screwed us up. Very basically, we will now be doing it. It won't affect most of you. You are my alternate on there, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I am.
Yes. For the first time, the association has agreed that we need to do at least one event a year aimed specifically at commissioners rather than the directors. That will be next spring. There will be a planning meeting for that sometime this fall. The idea is to engage the commissioners and help the commissioners learn from each other.
I remember that.
All right, that has moved forward. It's still not a done deal. They need to come back and put money in the budgets at each regional planning commission, and they need to approve the concept, but it is my hope that with a little bit of luck, after Monday's meeting, we will have a date for the fall, and we'll have some idea, and the costs are relatively minor, $25 or $35 a person, we're not talking. But nothing can be done for free. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So there should be something in the fall which may eventually turn into the planning committee for the actual event and what goes into the event. Not so much to hear people talk, but to network and to learn from your peers within the state. Again, breaking down some of the issues that might be unique to the North Country that we forget about down here, but do have impacts in both directions. So that organization also is trying to get more engaged with its membership. That's it.
Was there any resistance to that, and will we just?
I happened to miss one of the meetings, but no, when we proposed, it was brought up at one meeting. Christine, myself, and Cynthia make up the subcommittee. I couldn't make the first meeting where it was presented. Very, very good feedback, though. They wanted details, and they wanted it to move forward. So, yes.
Yeah.
Their problem, NHARPC is complaining. There are 9, so there should be 27 people at each of those meetings, 2/3 of whom should be commissioners.
Mm-hmm.
More than half of the people who show up at the meeting are the executive directors. So we have ourselves to blame as commissioners if we don't participate. They recognize that, they're trying to change that.
Yeah, because when I first got on the Regional Planning Commission, and I heard about this organization, I didn't even know it was open to commissioners. I'm not saying that they were keeping people out, but it wasn't understood.
That's exactly the sort of thing. That's why we're absolutely, there was full support,
yeah,
absolute full support for a commissioners event annually.
yeah.
It's in their bylaws also.
And it would provide actual information, seminars on different planning issues? Or is it just more of a kind of a
It's
chance
going to be a little bit of both. There are other events where we've been offered tracks, as the association, we've been offered tracks at some of the state meetings.
Yeah.
So, you know, if that's 2 or 3 days, we'd have one track in that.
Right.
That's where we'd like to see most of the education.
Okay.
You might want to be educated. I think a lot of the people who are serving as commissions are less interested in being formally educated than they are in getting some support and getting a level of comfort. The hope is for next spring, we'll do a late afternoon. Remember, none of this has been approved yet. We're talking about 2 45-minute sessions. We'll have 3 different similar topics, and we'll repeat them. So and then dinner, and then a speaker. If we get the response, and if we get feedback from whoever shows up, these are the issues we need you to address, we need to be educated on. Remember, we've got LGC and the municipal association now. You don't want to step on their feet either. So what's going to be unique to us? If we can identify unique needs, I believe what we're looking at for the spring is social media. Because that's critical. You heard, what sort of hits are we getting?
Oh,
Bits and pieces?
yeah.
That's social
It's
media.
been really good.
So, remember, we may be in good shape here. Are they being using it effectively up in North Country?
Right, so they can hear how it's being used here as well.
So that's just to give you a feel. So that
Yeah, that's great.
I have, I don't know if it's on target, but the bills that are in the Senate and in the House, there's one, it's the paint stewardship
Yes.
program. Could you give a little essay of what that is?
that, as a matter of fact, is the bill that I wrote the supporting letter for the organization.
Yes.
Because the representative who submitted that bill came and spoke to the organization. And basically that it's what I call, it's the recycling approach, or the life cycle management approach in paints. At the federal government, I don't know what was going on in the Navy at the time you were there, but we, the Navy, wrote the original life cycle management program, the old CRIMP program. I don't know if you personally were ever involved with CRIMP. Okay, you were? Okay. Well, I know the lieutenant commander who wrote that program. All right, I've been involved with that for 10 or 12 years. This is the state equivalent. It's the first step towards not throwing out paint, finding ways so that, especially at the municipality level, if we have 75 gallons left out of 1,500, maybe Milton can use it or Farmington can use it. I'm making it very simple and broad here, Bill. But the idea is to start managing more of those materials that present a hazard and getting them out of landfills. In very simple terms, very simplistic terms. That's it in a nutshell. That got tabled, by the way.
Was any amendments to it?
It's got tabled. Right now it's tabled. It's not dead yet. It didn't, but it's tabled at the moment. I was surprised. I thought that would sail through.
Was there real opposition to it? Was there opposition?
There must have been if it got tabled.
Like real-
But again, people, they can accomplish at the State House, but we sometimes accomplish in groups this size. That's part of the problem. Like everything else, it can't be free. There's going to be a cost somewhere. But if you look at avoidance costs and savings, which we're not that far down the road to be able to talk about that, so it's very hard to get people. I don't know. I will be asking about that Monday, since I wrote the support letter for it. Obviously, I have an interest in that. But just to give you another example, very briefly, the bill on returns on bottles, 5 cent, that got shot down. I would never have supported that to begin with. It needs to be built into the cost of the manufacturer, rather than, there are models that show that's the way to do it, rather than each state doing its own. And there are larger issues there. But that one didn't get it. I think that was ITL'd already. I'm almost sure it was ITL'd. And if you want, I know Cynthia gets the updates.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, she's been sent, because I'm getting them from her and getting them directly, so you can see what's out there.
Yeah.
So you can see where they're active, and they are trying to become more inclusive. I think the important thing is there's a recognition that organization itself needs to be much more inclusive. It's not just the executive directors. But every single executive director complained that they can't get enough commissioners to come. goes back to what you're talking about. How many people today can afford to drive down once a month to Concord for that meeting, and drive to Concord for
Yeah.
another meeting, and it just
Sure.
goes on and on and on and on. I'm lucky enough that I'm still at the point where that much I can absorb. But those days could come to an end too. Well, you realize
I don't-
Concord,
yes.
It's
yeah,
valuable.
I'm in Concord essentially twice a month now.
But it's invaluable what you bring back here.
One question about that trip twice a month. Where do you park? Where do you go?
You pay for your parking too.
Yeah, that's
You
why-
know, like I said, I'm not objecting to it, don't get me wrong, but people don't understand. All these things, even those of us who are volunteering, it is not at no cost.
Oh, there is a cost.
It's a very real cost. Very real direct economic cost.
And I know we're not elected, but we're putting our time.
Oh, yeah, but the elected officials, for our elected officials being able to go through Easy Pass for free, what good does that do people driving to Concord? You know, it sounds great, and some may take advantage of it, but overall,
How many times you go through Easy Pass? What is that?
I know, but I'm just saying, you know, all these things, there are real costs. It's not just time.
There's a cost for us to come up here,
Yeah.
realistically.
And that's one of the reasons, since I literally live, what, 4.5 miles up the road, I'm glad I'm now on the card that I can sign checks. I'm in here almost once every week signing checks. No big deal.
That's why nobody called me lately then. Thank you.
But that's my point. I mean, you've done it. If you wanted to, you could, don't get me, but the point is, yeah, we're already giving.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't fully appreciate that. Because what I'm hearing, it's a dark conspiracy. The people in this room are conspiring against, fill in the blank, retired Air Force officers, you know, whatever you want to call it today.
Yeah.
Not the truth.
Okay. If I could, now we'll move on to Regional Impact
Sorry.
Committee. And are there any committee members here for the Regional Impact?
Yes, but not trained yet, though, so.
Okay.
I received the training.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Any report?
Yes.
No,
Well, we just went through the approval of the, something for Sunningdale.
That's right.
And we just recently did the Middleton Golf Resort. And that was approved by the Wakefield Planning Board. So we expect that Wakefield will be having a new golf course and spa and hotel rooms and such up there. Progress up in the Vermont country.
There. By the way, this past Wednesday, oh, Walker, sorry. go ahead.
Well, I'll let you go first.
No, I was just gonna say, and getting back to what Bill just said about finishing up the committee report on Sunningdale Golf Course, the 177 houses proposed to be built. Past Wednesday, there was a planning board meeting. I think that was the first one on the agenda. Starts at 6:30. I think it's well past, what, 9 o'clock before the.
Yeah, it's a quarter of 11.
Quarter of 11. Not just that one subject, but there was another couple others too, but it's a long night for those sitting there watching it, you know.
Is the design that's gonna conserve a lot of land, is that still?
That's
supposed to be,
half of it.
yeah.
Are people in support of that, or
The butters, the neighbors, they're not.
they still think it's too big?
Well,
They just don't want it
They
there.
don't want anything?
They're
They don't want it in their backyard.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's traffic, increase in traffic.
It's gonna be a heck of an increase. in
And
traffic.
one of the things that they're concerned about is the number of children that will be
Back to
there,
school.
be going to the school, and the cost. Right now, you're looking at $10,000 to $13,000 per child. And if you have, say, 100 units, and you got 50 kids, you're looking at a considerable amount of money. And the taxes, just not going to take care of that. That's what I'm really concerned about.
There's a big concern about one of the entrances and exits is onto what they call Stackpole Road. It's a
Yeah.
connector road between Green Street and the High Street. And that's gonna really impact that road.
I was at the meeting, but I didn't participate.
Yeah.
So is it gonna be multifamily?
Single
family?
Single family homes.
Price range?
They say.
200 to 300,000.
Yeah.
You can buy a house in Berlin for 5,000. If you want to live there.
Anything else, Bill?
That's about it.
Walter, you got something?
I'm assuming at some point you will see another regional impact coming down from Rochester, because the initial plans for Strafford, for the Granite Ridge Marketplace have been submitted to the planning, well, to TRG, and the preliminary concepts have been shown once to the planning board. That started, I believe, was between 330,000 and 250,000 square feet of retail, open retail. It's not an enclosed mall.
Where is it located?
Where is it?
That is.
Chesapeake Hill?
No. Does everybody know where Little Falls Bridge Road is, the Shell service station on Route 11? Well, Walmart.
Yeah.
It's just below Walmart on that side of the road.
Sure.
And the entrance will actually be at Little Falls Bridge Road, at the Shell station. That'll open up into there.
I went up there to the Tractor Supply the other day. It's just incredible, the amount of clearage that's up there now.
Well, remember, a lot of that was cleared out for the Spalding Turnpike. That was Severino in there who grabbed the gravel or made the gravels. That's what allowed all of that to develop, when they found a way to start using some of that material. And now they're finally at the point where we've seen the initial plans. I'll be sending some. I've had some interesting discussions with state DOT and with the developer. I think that, again, I look at that as something that primarily could be a very positive impact on the region. But at some point, I am sure, based just on the square footage in there, it's going to have to come before regional. So that was just a heads up if anybody hadn't been aware of it. I had officially notified the planning commission, since I'm the commissioner here and I'm on the planning board. I didn't do it in writing, but they know about it. But we have nothing at this point to show.
And that's in Rochester itself, right?
That is in Rochester. Runs that district. Tractor Supply is the northwesterly anchor for that TIF. That TIF runs from the intersection of Route 11 and exit 15 on the Spalding. Runs right up to the Farmington town line on both sides of Highway 11.
It's a district.
That's
It's
TIF.
district?
Yeah, that's TIF district.
And the money from that is to go toward,
I wasn't involved initially, so I can't spit it off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
sure,
But
sure.
yeah, that was set up some time ago, about the time, actually it was set up just before I got on, or a couple of years before I got on the planning board or the planning commission. I just wanted to let everybody know, because I see some real positives coming out of that, and again, I see that for the region.
And what is it on, I'm not saying I don't see.
One of the things I've mentioned before, I would like to see as an example, a Lakes Region Information Center on 11 in that same area. I am going to propose to the developers that they consider doing both an off-ramp and an on-ramp to Route 11 northbound. We get recreation, huge recreation. That's the entrance to the Lakes region.
It is. Route 11 gets expensive. Amount of traffic.
If you do a regional information center, from my standpoint, I'm trying to be careful to separate out when I'm supposedly talking as a professional as distinct from my opinion. And living right up there, I believe if you capture them going up into the Lakes region, then those who want to leave earlier or later than rush hour may want to have dinner in Dover or Rochester. So it benefits the immediate surround of that information center. The problem is, it isn't for Rochester, it isn't for Dover, it isn't for Somersworth, it's for all of us. And getting everybody, and theoretically, if you do that information center, we can also bring in more volume, which you won't like, back through 202 down to 43. I mean, but do you want to, would that be something good for Barrington and Northwood, or is that something they want to avoid? If they want to avoid it, they should support the center supporting Dover and Rochester. And again, being realistic, there's nothing right or wrong, there's just different ways to do it.
It would be good for Brookfield and Wakefield.
if they want it. That doesn't, again, but you participate in the design of the total project as part of an integrated master plan, and fine, none of your restaurants put any folders in the Regional Information Center, assuming we ever got it, okay? But if you wanted to participate, now you can expand your, and perhaps the answer is you do Sunday night specials because you're getting all the reverse traffic. I'm just throwing out ideas. I'm not quoting any Bible here, so to speak. But my point is, that's why I see it.
Food for thought, that's the end.
About half of that land has to be left as is, being put into conservation in its wetlands. I'm going to push Rochester to talk to the developer about enlarging the concept of community gardens. There's no place in downtown Rochester to do that. But if you do that, now I need to talk to Coast to get bus service out there. So you see what I'm talking about? It isn't this, it's how does that fit into a larger picture, which I feel is part of our role also.
But also 125 is a major artery going north-south.
That was the major artery 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah, it was, but there was not much traffic on it.
Not then, no.
Or 16, which were around to build, but that's, a lot of them come down 125 because they get rid of the toll. And it's, since I live close to that, we schedule whether we go on, whether we use 125 or we don't. Certain times of day.
Oh,
Sunday night we don't use it.
Exactly.
Friday night we don't use it.
But I'd love to see more traffic coming off the other traffic circle. Where is that? Alton, basically. 28 and 11. Understanding that if everybody participates, I think everybody wins. If we could take some of that lakes traffic and put it down on 28 to get them down to 101 for those who are more westerly, and perhaps some who are in the middle coming down through realistically Northwood and Deerfield. If they knew there were multiple alternate routes, none of them would necessarily be as jammed as they are. We're getting towards what I want to talk about next in other business. Do we want to?
I want to just
I'm sorry.
Just briefly, the Chesley Hill Road rezoning, 147 acres from R1 to R2, and the developer wants apartments. Now, has any of this come up at your planning board?
Yeah, we supported it.
Okay. And so there's no regional impact that you could?
No, we don't see that as regional impact. I wouldn't have thought of that. We don't know what's going to happen. First and foremost, there's two different pieces there. There's the rezoning and whether anybody's going to actually do anything. And the fact of the matter is, if we don't rezone it, it's going to have a higher density than if we do rezone it. That's what people are basically saying renters are lower class citizens than owners. That's what the discussion eventually boils down to. Renters don't care about their properties. We don't want rental properties. That's what, when you distill all the discussion, that's pretty much what I've gotten out of it sitting on the planning board. Preserving the largest amount of land and producing the fewest number of units is what a specific developer wants. But we're not rezoning for the developer. The concept the developer offered us made it clear what we saw as the inherent advantages. Now, the city council, may very well overrule that and leave it the way it is. But yes, the planning board looked at the proposals and felt that the maximum use of the land that returned the best value to the citizens of the city as a whole was to rezone it. That doesn't mean that the city council is going to bite off on it.
Dover has a new development, 300 housing units and retail on Thornwood Lane at Dover Point. So, and that's a Summit Land Development property right now. So, 300 here, 180 here, 200 here. The area is sort of exploding as far as development goes. Housing development.
You're talking off Dover Point.
Yeah.
That's going to have an impact.
Sure.
Given where Chesley Hill is, would you rather see it as 5 and 6 houses at a time? That's, first and foremost, we don't even know that it's gonna get rezoned. And once the final zoning is out on that, we don't know that they're actually gonna develop. We don't know how much of this was purely threat tactics. I mean, I just don't know.
Does that impact 125 sort of traffic?
Oh, yeah.
And so, this regional planning commission has a transportation master plan advisory board or committee. There is one that's here. There are people that are on that committee. So I imagine they'd be talking about this too.
Again, whose decision is it whether or not to even submit it to the planning commission? The individual city and town. If a planning board doesn't feel it has a major impact, they're not required to submit it. Which was a point I was trying to make earlier, in that it's a two-way street for those who sit on the RPC to make the RPC aware. I'm not, again, not suggesting the RPC has the statutory authority to go out and even discuss it if somebody hasn't recommended it. But we certainly need to know it so our planners, Mark and Dan and Matt and Greg, can use that information. We're not doing, we as RPCs, not talking this RPC, I do not think are being allowed to do the job, and I think the RPCs are their worst enemies. They need to engage better to have a better feeling for what's going on. Again, you're getting part of what I wanted to talk about next. But it's the same idea. When we work together, no matter what our interests are, when we work together, we're more likely to get good results. If that means we don't want something in one area, then how do we make them go to the other area? I don't have a problem with that. But we haven't traditionally done that in this state, from what I can tell, and from what I'm hearing talking to people who've been around longer than I have. Ready to get to my last piece?
Yes.
No, the state, basically home rule, I'll take care of mine, and you take care of yours, we won't talk.
For a lot of things, that's probably fine. You know, I like retail politics, but
you also got
I think we've lost the but.
The whole picture.
we've lost it, because what you do here has a definite impact. If they develop Dover Point Road, is there any information on this side of Dover Point Bridge for funding?
Nothing isn't yet. Nothing that I've heard of.
Nope.
I've been trying to dig in.
The completion of the Spalding on the Dover side is still unfunded.
With the increase in the gas tax, I might move it more further.
That will help,
sooner.
and I can guarantee you it may not eventually pass, but count on hearing a toll increase coming shortly. My feeling is if our senators and representatives did their job, if that toll increase on the Spalding had to be used on the Spalding rather than on the Everett. Now, that's the way the law is today. Don't say it's not fair, it's not right. How do you get it changed? That becomes the issue. Right now, the tolls that are collected on the turnpikes go into the turnpike fund. My understanding is more of our turnpike funds go out than we don't get from other turnpike.
They do go out.
Okay.
The question was asked, if we do have an increase, where would the monies go? And
But that's my whole
Yeah,
issue.
they wanted for the bridge, but
Oh, no, they wanted
Sure.
to finish the Everett Turnpike and do high-speed tolling on the Everett Turnpike. Our legislators, our representatives and senators got to go in there and change that. If it's collected on the Spalding Turnpike, where should it be spent? What's the whole purpose?
yeah. Sure.
But again, that's getting a little out of,
Yeah.
That's food for another day.
Yep.
If they do increase it, they'll increase traffic on 125.
They may, but you know, if it gets bad enough on 125, people will be willing to spend the money if we maintain that toll road and we can keep it moving. And I tell you what, it moves on up at this end, except summer weekends, obviously. I mean, nothing's going to change
It
that.
does move. Well, the part in Rochester where Route 11 comes in, they used to be total disaster coming down.
But we've added a lane in each direction
Yeah.
down to exit 12.
It's much better.
And remember, we're also talking about, in the distant future, an exit 10. And that's part of what I want to talk about next. USDOT, we got a lot more money in Tiger grants than anybody expected. That happened, all right? Let me look at my notes real quickly. We in Northwood would qualify, Somersworth, Dover, Rochester would not qualify, I don't think, in terms of rural or urban, all right? Tiger grant, the next round, and the submissions have to be in by April 28th, so they are a little late in announcing it. 120 million for rural and 35 million for planning grants. Now, I never had a presentation until USDOT did one. We came in, and we could theoretically get a planning grant. What I'm suggesting is whether or not we can generate enough partners to go after a planning grant. The key to Tiger grants: innovation, multi-jurisdictional, and multiple advantages applications. As an example, in Rochester, we'd like to signalize the track crossing on Allen Street near our post office. That's not Tiger grant. Who does that benefit? The old folks who live across the street and very few other people. If we can take traffic off the highways, that's one reason. If we can find a way to integrate various modes that haven't operated for years, this comes back to your Somersworth thing, okay? One of my pet projects, not saying it's right or wrong, a bicameral port authority, and which means we'd actually begin to see some level of shipping coming in and out of here. To do that, however, you need to be able to double stack trains coming out of Portsmouth. So there's a piece of rail in there, all right? We currently have C&J running, I'm not C&J, we currently have Coast running its Clipper Express down the shipyard, okay? Could we handle that with light rail, which might go through Somersworth? My point is, I think we can assemble both the partners, which could be individual cities, as well as the Planning Commission. We don't necessarily even need the state, not that I'm trying to cut them out. Pratt & Whitney, didn't I just read that they're expanding?
Yep.
All right, we've got TurboCam, who's expanded how many times? We've got Albany Safran. So I'm not picking cities, I'm looking at, I happen to think a grant to look at a long-term integrated transportation system for York County, Maine, Strafford County, New Hampshire, and parts of Rockingham, New Hampshire, would be something to go after. I've made some notes. I don't know how many people are familiar with NODEX, so let me slip that one. Unitil. I believe with the Granite Ridge Marketplace going in, that Farmington should be talking, because they're cleaning up the old Collins Aikman site, and we can get Unitil to increase natural gas up there. How many propane trucks could that take off the road? But somebody has to do that plan, somebody has to pay for it. So an integrated plan, Unitil, Pan Am is the rail, primary rail here, Boston Sand and Gravel is the New Hampshire North Coast. How many people are familiar with the Yankee Flyer? I won't discuss it if you don't know it. That's a non-profit to restore an old train. It's an iconic train. There are only 2 left in the country.
I recall the old.
It's sitting in Lincoln. It needs to be moved down into Strafford or Rockingham County, so the volunteers from Boston come up and restore it. They literally can't get to Lincoln to do it.
You want to move the train down?
I want to move the train down, using that as an example. Cost $2 million. FRA is interested in that. The guys who build train engines, GM and GE and they're Caterpillar are both interested in supporting
It'd
them.
be great to move it down.
Yeah. But not only that, if you put a decent power plant in there is your 4-set local.
Should run that again. I'd love to see that back in the rail.
But I'm trying to give you
That was
ideas.
the old ski train, I think, wasn't
So
it?
what
No,
kind of
Yankee
projects?
Flyer?
Yeah.
Where the
Sort of
planning
a, was the train in itself.
You need partners.
Because a project that I've talked about here and there is the idea of a corridor plan for Route 4, which
That would be part of.
connects to the seacoast,
But
but it's going west.
We can do that that would be part of, and that would be Northwood as a partner because they're interested in the work. But that, I'm guessing, my feeling, having never written one from scratch myself, never been involved until after the fact before, I think there's a legitimacy, my guesstimate, seat of the pants, $350,000 two-year planning grant, an integrated approach to all forms of transportation, which includes pipeline for the Strafford region to include specifically York County and parts of Rockingham County. Nobody can make us do it. Cynthia may not have the time available, and her people may not have the time, so perhaps we would need Northwood to, but I started Unitil, Pan Am, Boston Sand and Gravel, Yankee Flyer, which is a 501c3 right now, there is an organization there, Pratt & Whitney, Albany, TurboCam, Great Bay Community College. Could more students come in if we had an integrated plan? Farmington doesn't want to support the Route 6. There may be good reasons. Again, I'm not arguing right or wrong, but we don't have a plan. And look at the growth here.
Quebec Community College. If there's a transportation plan, the kids would come. I know the president of the one in Berlin up there, they're losing, they're having trouble getting students, as I say, they can't get there. Granger and Berlin, but they got to drive, a lot of them cannot.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Transportation system to bring these people in.
Every single piece of information I see, whether it's opinion or research information, the millennials, as they call them, we are driving less. People are going to have to change their zoning requirements for fewer parking spaces. People today, the newer generations, are driving less. But this is where we go back to a plan that captures what's happened in the last 20 years for the whole region. So again, nobody's obliged to say yes or no, but I'm going to go into Cynthia, and the other people who could theoretically join us on this, Peace Development Authority. Anything we can do to increase their business, by the way, if we increase their business, that's jobs. Yes, it's going to tear up our roadways, because in the end, NODEC is a New Hampshire, the bottom line is it's the high-tech people looking specifically at export markets. I've attended their initial meetings. They transferred out of a government-funded study group to a 501c3, and they're now charging. But they're all looking to do all sorts of business internationally. Would that support some level of permanent air freight service in and out of Pease? I'm not suggesting but that takes a lot of time, some expertise and study. My feeling is we can tie this into like I say, an integrated intermodal transportation plan for the Strafford region that respects the changes in the demographics and the growth we're seeing and supports future growth.
Strafford Regional has a master plan advisory committee, and they have a master plan.
Oh yeah.
And we have, I believe we have a member of that committee sitting here today.
So how does it tie in with the regional master? How does it?
Well, essentially, you're creating a plan that's going to help drive any changes to both the land use and the transportation plans, or the master plan.
But this deadline is April 28th for this year, so you could do a piece of. But you're talking about doing a grant that's
well, to be competitive.
Yeah.
I don't know if you realize, last year we were one of 53 projects in 47 states. We were one of 9% of the people, of the submitters. It's extremely competitive. Yeah. Innovation, intermodal, multiple agents. They mentioned more than one time the idea of going across jurisdictional lines. So again, it can't be a Northwood project. It can't, that's my point.
Right,
To me, the logical focal point would be planning commission. We get we don't get any pushback, but we don't really get any support from the state. We can't ignore them, but all of these different things, do you want a park and ride or not want a park and ride? Does New Durham want a park and ride? We're doing them individually, and there's nothing wrong with that. But is there a way to finally start looking, as Tom and I were talking earlier, we've got this home rule concept. This is one of the few areas we really need somebody to study it and be able to present, so that Brookfield says, we like that idea, but we'd like to modify it so it does or does not drive traffic our way. It's not the issue whether you want it or not. If you're not being included in the discussion early enough, you're creating problems.
I think there's, I've talked to a few people that sort of tied in with the state. I think the state legislature, underneath it all, has to begin to change some of their thinking towards business. We are not a business-oriented state. We do not think business.
When we depended on.
We need to.
Yeah.
In order to really move this total thing forward. We got the BPT and the BPT, we got some other taxes that are, most people are not aware of unless you have a business. And that's killing some, but some won't come because of that.
Well, believe me, I know. I don't think a lot of people in court realize how important that broadband infrastructure is also. Businesses are moving in today if they don't have connectivity.
Yep.
But in any case, I just wanted to make you aware, because it's a very short time frame. Anybody who has a transportation-related project, this theoretically could be a way for us to fund some of the planning, not depend on state dollars. But it's short. I mean, we got to get our act together. I'll put something into Cynthia, but again, you can't ask her staff to keep doing more and more of these things.
I think we have to help them.
Like I said, my starting point is 2 years, 350,000, an integrated transportation plan for the region I've mentioned 2 or 3 times. That doesn't, and that, yes, you aggregate some of these small projects, but study them as part of an integrated program, not as a standalone. And I think we stand a better chance. And that, by the way, includes your off-road vehicle trails, your snowmobile trails, all of that. And that also goes back to something I wanted to talk about before. I think the money we've already got, and thinking about FEMA issues, when I talked about vegetation management, we don't have a single marked evacuation route in this region. We are literally designated to receive evacuees in case of a major seacoast problem.
Here we are. How are they going to get them here? And where are we going to put them?
And how do I keep emergency vehicles traveling when I have this high volume of traffic? So the study can see, and that's the other thing. They love the idea of engaging other agencies. So we can say we're looking at both the vegetation management, the evacuation issues, as part of an integrated transportation plan. They're not asking us to get dollars from the other agencies. They're looking for ways to leverage and work with the other agencies. This goes back to the whole innovation and different than not just my town and just this piece. That ain't gonna cut it. So that's something for all of you to think about individually. I will tell you, my first choice for the Flying Yankee is Somersworth, for a number of different reasons. Okay, I had started talking to Matt before he lost the election, because I had met him. Okay, there's going to have to be an investment on Somersworth's side also. You know, don't look for everything for free. Basically, the Flying Yankee needs a 200-foot building that they can work on the train in the wintertime on. This is going to take a couple of years to restore it, and that's going to be volunteer effort. That's on your right-of-way. That's part of what we already have Tiger money for. You're improving 2 or 3 intersections in Somersworth, are you not?
Yes.
Build on that.
Does that, I'd like to get back to the Navy Yard. I touched with somebody bringing trains out of the Navy Yard. And she was saying, well, it goes under the bridge in Portsmouth. I don't think it does.
Yes, it does.
It still does?
Yeah.
Spent fuel,
That's been opened again?
Yep, I believe it has.
that's where it's spent.
And they're talking, that's the bridge, that's the next bridge we're replacing.
That's supposed to be
Yeah.
replaced.
But again, if we had this planning grant even starting, because they'll make the notifications this fall, integrating some of that, and I got to tell you, reaching way outside what we've talked so far, I'm of the personal belief that we need to start talking about what we're going to do with the shipyard when we lose more of the submarine rework. We're not building the number of submarines we use. We're not going to see the. You know, the Navy just started again to try and get bids for the brig.
Yeah.
That's why I want York County.
You
That's why I
can't
want
sell,
a bicameral
They can't sell it.
All they have to do is remediate it, they'd be able to find something to do with it. In the past, the government has taken the responsibility for contaminating the land.
Yeah.
What the Navy's basically saying, and the brig, is you accept, you inherit all the
Yeah, you
responsibilities
accept
for
it as
cleanup.
it is.
Yeah, and you clean it up. Again, that gets back, if our plan said, or if the planning study said, we could bring in 12 carloads of boxes a month,
Yep.
that's an incremental piece. We know that we're already having problems with propane here. If you remember from last year, we even brought it up a couple of times. The sidings and the propane people don't want to move it by truck in terms of the providers getting their material, not the retail side of it. They're forced to bring it in by big tank truck. We improve rail, so you got an incremental this, a little bit of that. And there are opportunities. I don't know enough to be able to say I'm right, but to study it takes money and time, and I'm certainly not in a position for free to continue, to do extensive research work. All of those things, Tom, keep coming back to, where's that plan that says we need to look, this is where we think we'd like to go, this is where we think we are going, these are the transportation needs, and here are dozens of little projects that make up the transportation. Can they be integrated into
Have
something?
you talked with Mark and the others that are working on the transportation chapter? Because
Did-
when it was presented a couple of months ago, I mean, it's a vast undertaking that theoretically is going to include these things. But this.
But this only came up,
now?
this was Wednesday afternoon that I went to
Right.
the webinar, and these are the notes I took Wednesday afternoon,
Yeah.
all right?
But is this money going to be available in coming years? And why so much of it, so theoretically, so much available right now? Is the timing's a bit off in terms of.
Well,
this
I
big
think
picture?
there was a conscious decision to short fuse this to reduce the number of applicants from the federal standpoint. It's one thing to turn down 80%. It's another thing to turn down 99%. You'll have a lot more people who are upset. So I think they short fused it so there'd be relatively little time. Those who didn't win in other cycles may resubmit. We weren't sure there would be any Tiger money. This was just very late in the game that they decided to put this much money into Tiger. Personally, I didn't think it was going to survive. The growing recognition of just how poor the infrastructure is the major driver here. It's a fortuitous time. It's the best way I can say it. It's a fortuitous time.
Is it acknowledging New Hampshire specifically?
Oh, no, no,
Is it
no.
anything? Nothing?
No, this is not New Hampshire
It's
unique at
just-
all. This
okay.
is,
And this money is statewide?
no, this is federal money.
But I mean, the 120 million, that's.
The 30, no, that's national.
it's
That's the
national,
total,
so
that's,
I just wanted to be sure.
in this round, there's 120 million, there's 600 million total. 120 million is reserved for rural. 35 million is reserved for planning grants. It's the 35 million in the planning money that I'm talking about. We have nothing that's shovel ready.
Okay, just wanted to be sure, yeah.
And if you miss it the first time, it's a lot tougher to apply for it the second time.
I've heard both sides of that. And one of the questions was asked also is those who were turned down in the past have resubmitted and gotten. So there are no hard, fast rules. It's a relatively new program. What is this? This is going to be Tiger 6 or Tiger 7. So they've only done this 5 or 6 times at this point, all relatively recently, during this administration. So they're learning too. But I would not look at that, no. The big cities always manage. They made a big issue of this one also for the first time expanding covered ports. If any of you have 5 or 10 minutes, go on to the web and type in MARAD M95. There are probably less than 10 designated marine highway routes in this country. M95 and M5 are the 2 big ones. If you're on the West Coast, you know what I-5 is. So there's theoretically a way to work with MARAD and the Corps of Engineers as part of this larger project. And this goes back to why it's the right time to start looking at how do we increase our port capacity, because Tiger specifically is just open to ports and is interested in ports. There's your Peace Development Authority. There are a lot of different things, and I'm talking off the top of my head. Remember, I heard about this Wednesday. I made some notes to myself. I was not going to pass up the opportunity, given that very compressed timeline, as to whether or not Srpc should put in the effort it's going to take to go after a planning grant.
You supposed to be thinking about this?
I haven't had a chance
I've
to.
had a chance to do that.
I mentioned to her that I was going to send her my notes on this, but that was Wednesday afternoon, this is Friday morning. She knows I'm interested, but again, I want to keep repeating. How much of a load can you put on the staff here? Or if you're not going to do it, I mean, can you put in time, as an example, and Marcia, and Tom, and myself, and, you know, who do we know? Jim Campbell, I'm not saying any of them would, but I think it's worth the effort, because I truly believe it is not unreasonable. By the way, we haven't won a planning grant before, and they're separate. I believe 350,000 is what it would take. And again, that's gut feeling, either I'm right or I'm wrong, prove me right, prove me wrong. You know, it's not that simple.
That's what it would take to do it.
I think if we did the full play, again, you won't have every detail for every project, but to do a full-blown regional transportation study and plan, I think would cost that sort of money.
I'd like to work with you on the plan. Okay.
I would be willing to be part of it. I do a lot of writing meetings.
And I'm not an expert in that area, although I felt I made a major contribution to the Tiger Grant. We did win. So, you know, I'm familiar with the process.
What exact piece of rail did that Tiger Grant go to?
That basically is Boston sand and gravel from the Rollinsford interchange up 42 miles.
Okay.
Oh, we have
The
the
big-
Ospey, right? I believe.
The big issue was there's the washout up near Ossipee that, given the overall volume of freight traffic today, we were in a catch-22. Once it washed out, it was too expensive to repair by the railroad. This Tiger Grant essentially is allowing them to finally restore that washout, which means we can now realistically talk about both freight and rail to Conway. I'm sorry, freight and passenger to Conway. Not that it's done deal, but it was impossible until that washout got taken care of. There are, IDEX, I believe, is up here. They want a siding. At least 2 propane companies would like sidings. You can't do it all at once.